Hey everyone, welcome back, and we're at Module 3 in our carpet cleaning course. This module is carpet construction, how things are made. We learned about fiber content, and this is taking that fiber and constructing it into carpet. How it's made, how it's installed, paddings, everything. We're going to cover all of that in this module. So carpet construction, let's get right into it. Remember, give us a thumbs up if you're getting value, and make sure you subscribe so you get all the subsequent modules after this. So anyway, let's get right into it and enjoy this module.
Welcome to Professional Carpet Cleaning Course, Module 3, Carpet Construction and Installation. We're going to be covering several ways that carpet is made or constructed today. There are several different types, and each one has different advantages and disadvantages. You're going to find some in wall-to-wall installations, while others are going to be more suited for commercial settings where it's glued down, and we're going to have some that are more suitable for area rugs. So on the right, we're going to be going over woven, tufted, fusion bonded, needle punched, flocked, and knitted. First of all, we're going to cover woven. Woven rugs are anything that, if you flip that rug over, you're going to see the same pattern on the back as you do on the front. So the back of the weave, you're going to be able to see the fibers. It won't always have the same exact look. Sometimes the colors will be reversed on the back side as it is on the front side. But you'll always be able to see the fiber from the front of the carpet on the back. So it's woven into the backing yarns of the carpet. They're going to have a warp yarn, which are the warp yarns are the ones that go lengthwise on the rug. And then they're going to have the weft yarns, and they're going to go side to side on the rug. And an easy way to remember that is if you've ever watched Star Trek, you know warp speed. So you think of warp speed going lengthwise, well, the weft and the right yarns go side to side. So weft and right, and then the warp is going warp speed straight ahead. At least that's how I remember it. There's three main types of woven carpets that we're going to cover. And we're going to start here with the velvet and the Wilton weaves. First of all, on top there is a velvet weave. It's basically going to be a really simple weave. You're not going to have a whole lot of different colors. You're going to have mainly one solid color. It can make a really dense piles. Not a whole lot of colors, different colors you're going to find in these rugs. Next you have the Wilton. The Wilton's more complex. It's made on a jacquard loom, and these looms can produce carpets that have more complex colors, different variety, things like that. And they can be very expensive, but they're also very long-lasting. The third type we're going to cover is an Axminster. Now this is one that you're going to need to remember. Now it's very rare to actually find it, at least in my part of the country. I don't see it a whole lot. Now, bigger cities where you have a lot of commercial buildings, you might run into this more often. The weave can be identified by its ability to be rolled only in one direction. So if you ever find a sample of this, try to roll it in both directions and see how it feels. It's really stiff in one way and really loose in the other. And the reason why is you see on the picture on the right bottom there, or the top, those weft yarns are really, there's a lot of them. So they're not going to make a whole lot of on the left and right of that rug, or the weft yarns aren't going to be a whole lot of flex there. They're not going to want to bend. So it's very difficult to roll an Axminster sideways. So it's really easy if you can have a piece of it to kind of visualize that. Also, these can have really intricate patterns, really beautiful patterns. On the bottom there, that blue rug, that's an Axminster. So you have something that's just really ornate, really beautiful, very expensive. You need to remember when cleaning these rugs, don't get it too wet. These rugs want to shrink. So if you get them over wet, it will shrink on you. Now, a lot of rugs, if it was to shrink, you could restretch it. You can't restretch an Axminster. Once it's shrunk, which means you're on the hook. And you don't want to have to pay for a full Axminster installation. It will literally put you out of business. Now we're going to cover tufted rugs. This is the bulk of what you're going to be cleaning out there is a tufted rug. It's the most common construction for carpets today. Basically, we're going to have a secondary and a primary backing. The secondary backing's on the very bottom of the carpet. The primary backing is, as we remember in the video when we watched in the last session or the last module, we had that backing, and then the yarns were stitched directly into that backing. That's the primary backing. So when those yarns are stitched, the primary backing and the yarns come out, and then we have a bonding agent, which is typically latex, and then the secondary backing is basically pressed onto the primary backing with the yarns attached, and it's going to glue the yarns in because the yarns are stitched into the backing of that primary. Once that secondary is on and the latex bonds and dries, the yarns are now locked in place. They're basically glued between those two backings. So we have the primary and secondary backing. The tufts are on top, and then the bonding agent, typically latex, is holding everything together, and this gives it what's called dimensional stability when you have those two backings together. Now keep in mind, before the secondary backing is pressed on, those goods are called gray goods. They're undyed material. The gray goods will be dyed before the secondary backing is glued on. Now we're going to look at several backings. As we talked about, there's two backings, the primary backing and the secondary backing. Most modern carpets, all the backings are going to be synthetic fibers. Woven products are different. The backings on woven products are not really a backing, but all those fibers in the center of the rug that are stitching it together, those are a lot of times made out of cotton. Some are made out of synthetic. A lot of those rugs, though, are going to be cotton, so you got to know what you're cleaning. Because cotton, if you remember, cotton has the tendency to do a cellulosic browning, so that can cause you a problem if you're leaving that rug too wet. Now in the past, we talked about in the sessions prior that we used to have a jute back. So if you look at the upper right corner there, that is what's called a jute back, and it looks brown. Now jute always looks brown. If you look at the one right next to it, the action back, that's synthetic. So there's a big difference. You can easily tell a jute back from a synthetic back just by pulling a small corner of the carpet up. If you want to verify, is this a jute back or is this a synthetic fiber, you can easily see it. That jute is going to be very brown. You're going to see action back most often. Most carpets have that action back on it. It's all polypropylene or olefin, all those white fibers, those little squares. Now you'll see the action back come in different picks, they're called. So the size of the square is the size of the pick. The smaller the square, the better the backing is. So if you look at a backing on a really cheap carpet, it's just going to kind of have really loose squares. You get a higher grade carpet, you're going to have a lot of those little tiny squares, and that backing is going to be really, really stable. So once it's stretched in, it doesn't have the tendency to ever really get loose on the customer. Now the bottom there on the left, you see a soft back that is specifically made by Shaw Industries. It's the largest carpet manufacturer in the world. It's just made not to scratch floors. You'll see this with a binding on the outside and used as area rugs quite a bit. It's just carpet with a binding on the outer edge, and they put that down, and it's not going to scratch their hardwood floor or something like that. But what we want to make sure we're looking at on this is that jute back. Get a jute back rug too wet or carpet too wet, you will have a browning issue the next day that now you're going to have to come back and remedy it with the customer. All right, the first one we're going to look at here is needle punched carpet. This is just a really simple method. If you look on the right hand side there, you see what's called the web. What that is just a really thick matting of a polypropylene fiber, and it's run into a machine that has basically what's called the needle board. So you have that on the right there, the needle board. It's got hundreds or thousands of very small needles, and there's a close-up there on the bottom. And these needles, they go up and down really fast and just slams into that bed plate. And what that needle board does is it crushes the olefin fiber. We remember that olefin crushes very easily. Well, this is a method that takes that into account and uses that as an advantage. So we're going to crush the olefin, and you can make different types of patterns. You see on the rug there at the bottom, it's a different pattern there. You can adjust those needles in that board and come up with any pattern you like. You're going to see these most of all in area rugs, floor mats, mats at front doors of buildings, things like that. These are typically going to be needle punched carpets. Next we have a fusion bonded carpet. And these are made by bonding two pieces of rubber, one on top, one on bottom, two fibers in the middle. And once they're bonded, you're going to have a tuft bind. Now a tuft bind how strong the carpet is attached to the backing. All carpets will have a tuft bind, and it can be measured with a certain tool that's designed to test how many pounds it takes to pull a tuft out of the carpet. This is going to be the strongest method because the carpet fibers are actually bonded or melted into the backing of the carpet. You're going to see these most in commercial carpet installations. These fusion bonded carpets are cut into 18-inch squares, and on that bottom picture there you can see it's a commercial facility with these fusion bonded tiles installed throughout. Now remember, there's going to be a lot of seams on these carpets, so if you're wet cleaning an installation that has this type of carpet installation on it, it has the tendency, if you're wet cleaning it over and over again, to get water down inside those seams and start to loosen or degrade the bond that it has on the subfloor underneath it. So you can have a problem later on where these tiles will start to come loose on you. So you just want to make sure that if you are wet cleaning it, that you make sure you don't get it over wet, because you don't want to have a problem where these tiles start to come loose and then you start having to re-glue them down. Because remember, if you're doing the cleaning, you're going to be on the hook for whatever goes wrong during your cleaning. So we just want to make sure that we know how these are down. Sometimes you might even want to test them. I've found that I go into an installation and they're already loose. So it's a good idea to notify the consumer. Say, hey, your tiles are already loose here. I can definitely clean them, but I wanted to bring it to your attention that you might want to have somebody in to the facility to start gluing these back in. So make sure you cover your bases before you start the cleaning. When you do your inspection, do a thorough one when you go into the facility before you clean it. Flocked carpet. Flock carpets are made by blowing filaments or pieces called flock into a backing with latex on it. It creates a really short pile, feels like a velvet, it's very smooth. After that's done, the secondary backing is attached to the primary backing and you have a flocked carpet. Knitted carpet. I don't see a lot of this. It's made by interlocking multiple loops of yarns together. Once the carpet is made, a secondary backing is applied to add stability to the carpet. So now we're going to look at all the construction styles. You're going to have two main styles. It's going to be a looped product or a cut pile product. So if you see on the right hand side there all the different styles, they're either going to have a loop or they're going to be cut. Now some of them do have both. The cut loop, which is the third one down there, you can tell it has both. First one we're going to look at is the level loop. Typically you're going to see a level loop in a commercial facility. Most facilities that I clean, whether it's a lawyer or a church or just a generic office of some sort, you're typically going to see a level loop carpet. Not always, but most of them have a looped product in them. These are typically made with bulk continuous filaments or fibers. So here we have what it looks like close up. That's a level loop carpet. And all it is just a whole lot of loops, and they're really small typically in a commercial setting. So you're going to have a lot of little tiny loops. It makes for a very smooth carpet, so if you feel it, it just feels like one continuous sheet. If you get down close, you can see that they're made by individual loops. Now, in a residential setting, this can be called a Berber if these loops have a more fat yarn. Still a loop product. We're going to call it a Berber rather than a level loop. But same thing, it's just a bigger, fatter yarn. Now, there's no twist on these yarns. They're just untwisted yarn and they're plied into the backing to make small loops, or in a Berber's case, big loops. So the next one we're going to look at is what's called a Saxony plush. We have plied, twisted yarns, primarily used in residential applications. When you hear plush carpet, this is it. Now we can have different types of shears. The shear is how the fiber is cut at the top. You can have a textured shear where they have different lengths of the carpet fibers, or we can have a smooth shear where all the fibers are exactly the same height and makes for more of a luxurious look. It's a very smooth but does show footprints really well. The textured shear tends to hide footprints a little bit better. So we have a close-up picture here. This is a textured cut, so it's not smooth. This is not a smooth Saxony. This is just a plush carpet. So you can see the fibers have a twist to them, but not all the fibers are exactly the same height. So it is not a smooth cut, but a textured cut. Next one we're going to look at is a velvet plush. I don't see a lot of this. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen one of these on an installation. Possibly one of my commercial installations at one time. Nothing in a home I have ever seen a plush. There's no heat set. There's no twist on these fibers. If you do run into these, make sure you know it. Look at that fiber, see if it has a twist or not. If it looks kind of suspicious to you, like, hey, this might be something I need to look closer at, do it. Get on your hands and knees. Look closely at it. Because if you clean this improperly with a lot of agitation or something like that, you can damage it. You don't want to damage this carpet. You want to make sure you know what the proper way is to clean it. Remember, don't groom this at the end of your job with a grooming rake. You need to use a brush, not a grooming rake for this product. So here's a side view of this, so you can see there is no twist in that. It's just the fibers going straight up, and it's cut fairly smooth at the top, so it's going to look smooth. It's going to look very soft to the touch because there's no twist. It's not stiff. It's going to be a very soft installation. So when you're suspicious, make sure you check this one out to make sure you know what you're doing and how you need to clean it. The next one we're going to look at is a cut and loop. Now this is also going to be called a textured Berber or something like that. A lot of times you'll have a pattern to it. So you can have a pattern that's just grids, or sometimes it can look like a floral pattern or leaves. There's many different ways that this product can look. So if we look at the picture on this one, you can see you have more of a grid pattern, little squares. The cut loops are the lines, and the looped product is the interior of each square. And on the side view, you can see that. It's very obvious when you look at the cross section there. You have the loops and you have the cut pieces. Next, we have a multi-level loop. This accomplishes the same purpose as the cut and loop. You can create a pattern by varying the height of your loops. So there you can see we have the short loops, and they appear as a little bit of a darker section in between the lighter colored stripes, and that's just because it's a shadowed area. It's almost acting like a small canyon. Those tall loops are creating shadows in the lower loops. Therefore, it looks like it's a striped pattern. Even though there's no color difference on the yarns, it appears as if there is because of that shadow that the large loops are casting. Next, we're going to have a frisé. A frisé is going to have a high twist count, 8 to 12 twists per inch. So if you've ever taken a piece of string and you start twisting it and twisting it, it tends to want to loop on itself or twist and knot up. That is exactly what they're doing to create a frisé yarn. They're putting a high twist on it, and the carpet fibers are going to want to twist on themselves, creating a carpet fiber that is going all different directions. So you're not having it sticking straight up anymore like the plush carpet. Now it's twisted so much that it's going to want to bend and twist upon itself, and it's going to go all different directions. And you can see in this picture that those fibers are going, they're laying down, they're standing up, they're curling, they're twisting. This makes for a very long-lasting carpet. You're not walking on the tips of the carpet anymore, you're walking on the side of the carpet fibers. So a lot of times it's going to last really well. It doesn't show footprints very much, it's going to clean really well, and it's going to wear really well. So it doesn't tend to show a lot of texture variation or texture problems. I'm tending to see a little bit less and less of this in the new products. I'm not sure why, but I don't think they're producing as much of the frisé. Might be getting a little less popular with the consumers, but I like this carpet. It cleans up well and doesn't show a lot of texture variation in pathways. Makes for a very easy clean. Next we have shag. This is identified by very long yarns. Not a whole lot of density, so the yarns aren't put very close together, but they're so thick and so long that you don't notice. You won't be cleaning a lot of this, but there is some of it still out there. Some of it was made in the 60s, and you'll have colors like green and gold shag, carpets, rust color carpets, blues, yellows, and there's a lot of fiber in these carpets, so it takes a lot of water to clean them. You want to make sure you do extra passes on this as far as dry times. It can be very long, so you want to make sure you're doing extra dry passes. When we talk about cleaning, you'll get to see how that works. But anyway, don't see a lot of shag, but it is still out there. There was a resurgence of shag not that long ago, several years ago, where they brought this back. Didn't last too long. Within 10 years, you don't see hardly any of it anymore. And there's a picture of shag. It's just really long fiber. This is one of the newer ones, so it's not an old one, but very easy to tell. It's just really, if it's got really long carpet, you can call it a shag. Next, we're going to talk about carpet installation. Now, there's several different types of carpet installations that you're going to come across while cleaning. Some are more common in residential, others it's just going to be commercial setting, although they do cross over now and then. The Carpet and Rug Institute publishes the CRI Carpet Installation Standard booklet. This book outlines the proper technique and guidelines for installation of carpets. There's two of them, the CRI 104 and the CRI 105. The 104 is going to cover you for commercial carpet installation, and the 105 for residential. We're going to cover right now 4 types that you're likely to run into while cleaning: stretch in, direct glue down, attached cushion, and double stick glue down. First of all, stretch in. This is what you're going to run into when you're in homes. 99% of residential homes are going to have a stretched in carpet. I have seen glue down carpets in homes, very, very rare. A stretch in application involves first putting a pad down on top of the subfloor, as well as what are called tack strips. You can see that in the right upper picture there. That is a tack strip. You have angled nails. Those nails are going to be angled towards the wall, and they're going to be nailed into the subfloor of the home. After the pad and the tack strip are down, the carpet can be cut to the room size and then installed. The way it's installed is by using a power stretcher. On the bottom right-hand corner, there's a power stretcher in use. What it does is one end of the stretcher is placed against a wall. The other end has that head on it, and as you push that handle down, the head pushes forward. On the bottom of that head is 20 or 30 little spikes, and that grabs onto the carpet and pulls it. It's attached to the tack strip against the wall, and it's using the tack strip to hold it in place, while the other half is stretched onto the opposite wall's tack strip. It's pushed down onto the tack strip, and the tack strip on the opposing walls holds it in place. And you work your way around the room, stretching it in as you go, and then the excess is trimmed off and you have a stretched in carpet. Now, if you do have to make a seam in the carpet, you can see on the bottom left-hand picture, he's making a seam on the carpet. That blue tool in his hand is called a seaming iron, and all it does is heat up on the bottom and melt the hot glue that is on that seaming tape. Once that glue is melted, the carpet is then pushed down onto the seam tape, and as that glue dries, it's now bonded the two pieces of carpet together, creating a permanent bond. Now, the one mistake I see most of all in carpet is that little center picture there with the little end of the bottle, and he's applying what's called a seam sealer to the seam prior to seaming the carpet. This must be done. Most installers don't bother. Now, what that does is when you're cleaning or just through normal wear of the carpet, the consumer can start losing their fiber, because as you cut the carpet to be ready for a seam, you leave a raw edge on the carpet. If that raw edge is not sealed or glued, you're going to start losing your fibers. This is one of the things I see most often, and it can lead to complications in your cleaning. So you need to make sure that as you're doing your primary inspection, that you look at the seams. Are they already coming apart? Or are they tightly bonded together? Because if they're not, if they're coming apart, you want to be able to tell your consumer that they have a problem with their seams. And this can also be an extra source of income. If you start getting into installation or repair, you can repair those seams. So keep in mind, it can be another income source. Next, we have a direct glue down, and that's just what it sounds like. Glue is spread down onto the subfloor using a notched trowel, and then the carpet is then laid directly down into the glue, so it directly glues down the carpet to the subfloor. The problems that you can run into on a direct glue down is if the installer has used a very old trowel where the notches are worn down from years of use, you can have an improper spread of glue, and then when you clean it, it can tend to want to ripple on you. And what a rippling is, the carpet stands up wherever it has a poor contact with the glue below it. It can cause a rippling effect where little lumps will form. Now, those will go back down after the carpet is dry. But if you don't let the consumer know that this is a possibility, when they come in after your cleaning and there's ripples on the carpet, they could tend not to be too happy. So you want to make sure you cover your bases, tell them the problems that could happen if the glue is not properly spread on their installation, that there could be some ripples but it's not a problem. They will go back down after it dries. So make sure you inform your consumer of this so there isn't any problems if this is the case on your installation. And the last two we have is attached cushion. This carpet comes from the factory with its cushion already attached from the factory, and it's glued directly down to the substrate. This is typically used in commercial buildings as well. And then double stick glue down, similar, but the padding is glued directly to the subfloor, and then the carpet is glued directly to the pad. Also popular with commercial facilities. Now we talked about a few different problems, and I've got some pictures here to show you what to look for when you're doing your inspection on the carpet. The top picture there is a bad seaming job. That can happen when they don't use seam sealer, and it can happen if they just don't form the seam properly at the time of the installation. If there's too large of a gap, it can be caused from somebody new to installation, or it can be caused from somebody that didn't use the seam sealer and they've started losing the fiber. That's a high traffic area in a doorway. If they don't use a seam sealer in that area, they're going to lose fibers from that seam, and it could cause that type of look. Now down on the bottom here you have carpet that's simply just coming away from the edge of the installation. This is fairly common, and it can be easily repaired. Again, if you know how to do it and have the right tools, this is an easy add-on. And if it's an easy repair, you've just made 20 bucks extra on the job, simply by having the right tool in your possession. Now in that bottom right picture, what we have is an improperly stretched carpet. It may look like this before you start cleaning, or it may come up after you start cleaning. These typically can be repaired if you have the right tools and know-how. If it comes up during the cleaning, remember, let your customer know that it will go back down after it dries, that it's a normal occurrence, but the carpet's slightly loose in that area and they may need to take care of it in the future at some point. So these problems are common. You're going to run into them while cleaning. It's important to be able to spot them before you clean the carpets. You don't want to have your customer say, that wasn't like that before you started. You caused that. So when you are inspecting the carpet prior to cleaning, make sure you point these areas out. Did you know your carpet was coming loose here? Did you know that seam is losing fibers? Did you notice those wrinkles on the floor? You'll be very surprised to find out that customers will have never seen those wrinkles before you point them out. I routinely talk to people that will say, I never noticed those wrinkles before, and they're right in our walkway. Now remember, these problems can cost you money, or they can put money in your pocket. You should always be learning the techniques to clean as well as repair. You don't want to leave money on the table when you're cleaning carpet. If you can make $20, $40, $60, $100 extra per job just by having some tools and some know-how, why wouldn't you do it? So remember, keep an eye out for these things. You can make more money just by knowing how to fix them and having a few tools in your truck. Well, that's it for this module. We'll continue in the next. We'll see you then.